Hey everybody, welcome to the KetoMom page. My name is Stephanie and we are going to talk about the buck stops here. What does that mean? We will see. Okay, so we're going through this book called The 7 Decisions. Chapter 1 is about the buck stops here. But before we do that, I want you to tell me, how is your morning going? How do you start your day? I actually have not drank my ketones, so I'm going to shake up my ketones right now. My kids, actually, I wanted to sit outside because it's beautiful out. It's beautiful and loud. It's kind of windy. I live in Minnesota, so it's windy, and we live kind of by a private airport, and they must be practicing, like they must be taking kids out for flight school. It's so loud. So I was like, I can't sit outside and do my life. And then my family is in the kitchen, living room, dining room area, and they're all eating their breakfast. Loud. It's loud everywhere. So as you're tuning in, tell me, how is your morning going? My kids are eating strawberries. I think they're eating a whole bunch of berries and keto bread from Costco. They like to make keto toast. I actually get asked that all the time. Is the keto bread actually really good for you? And I like to say it falls within your macros. Like, it's not something you need every single day, but basically, it's a lot of fiber. It just makes you poop. But I'm going to drink my ketones. All right, as you're tuning in. So if you eat breakfast, what did you eat? I love breakfast, but I don't often eat it. Just depends, but I love breakfast food. Good morning, good morning. Okay, we're going to talk about the buck stops here. So good. Mom fuel every day. If you've never tried it, you should post trial in the comment. We'll chat. So good. All right. Are you ready? So I had a message today. I talk to people all the time, all day long. And good question. Okay. Actually, here's a great, anytime as when I come on lives, doesn't matter if I'm talking about ketones or if I'm talking about a book or just a recipe, you can always ask your questions below. So like, for example, somebody says, does electrolytes break your fast? So what I learned from Dr. Ryan, if you did not see the interview that I did with Dr. Ryan, he is a doctor, scientist down in Tampa, Florida. He's amazing. One of the formulators of drinkable ketones. And he said that the way that people are shifting in the verbiage of keto, this is before we talk about the book, this is just bonus, because it kind of spurred my thought on as somebody asked about fasting, especially in the mornings. Hold on. He said most people these days, keto years ago was like keto and that's all people knew. And now people realize there is being carb conscious, making better decisions, low carb. And so he said, really something that truly breaks your fast is something that raises your insulin. Oftentimes people think anything that has a calorie to it will break your fast. And Dr. Ryan said, really? You don't break your fast unless you eat or drink something that raises your insulin levels. So you could check that on a meter if you wanted to. So like, for example, ketones don't break your fast. I would say electrolytes don't break your fast. Coffee with certain creams, depending on you and your body, don't break your fast, right? So, and some people just prefer to do water. Everybody's different. So there you go. If you've got keto, low carb questions, ask them below and I'll come back on and answer them later. But here's what I want to talk about. I was talking to somebody this morning, and anytime somebody messages me and she's just not in the right space, she'll, like, her mindset was like, I'm not happy, life is not great, all of the things. And the question I say is, what did you read today? So I hear you, like you fell off the wagon, things aren't going the way that you want it to go, your mindset is not great, I don't feel great about myself. And I said, okay, what are you reading? What are you listening to? Because it is so interesting. I bet you if you got up in the morning and you did a little test, one day you got up without being intentional, maybe you slept in a little bit later, you didn't read or listen to anything that would fuel your mind right, maybe you went down a rabbit hole of comparison. It would be interesting for you to track how your day goes if you were not intentional about setting your mind in a right direction. I told her, I said, you need to stop what you're doing and go read or listen to a podcast, go put on some worship music, go sit and be quiet for a moment, gather your thoughts. Your day doesn't have to be terrible. You're choosing the thoughts you are right now, which is going to ultimately result in a bad day if you keep going down that route. So you have an awareness. Gather yourself for a little bit. And what do you need to do? Say to yourself, what do you need to push behind you? What do you need to do to give yourself like, all right, I'm done right now. I'm going to have a great day. So I love this book because each chapter gives you a decision or a thought as you go throughout your day. So today, the chapter is called The Responsible Decision. He says, if decisions are choices, which they are, everything that you do today is a choice. If your decisions are choices, and our thinking dictates our decisions, then we are where we are because of our thinking. Do you believe that? You are where you are because of your thinking. I 100% believe that. How you think is a result of how you feel, creates action, creates what you do throughout your day, and then that ultimately is your results. So the phrase of the day I want you to think about as you're tuning in is I want you to think about the phrase, it's the buck stops here. We're done. Right now. And what does that mean? He says, this is the phrase, I am responsible for my past and my future. The buck stops here. The responsible decision is always about owning our own power. In a way, our choices have made us where we are today. And fundamentally, our thinking, the internal lens through which we see the world, creates a pathway to success or failure. So you might be thinking, well, I didn't grow up in a great home. I was always told I'm going to be fat. I was told I was big boned. I was told it's in our family. It's hereditary. I was told I will never amount to anything. I was told, right? People have these things in their minds. I was told, people said this over me. People didn't believe in me. I didn't have a good, all of those things. I understand it. And this chapter is all about, you're all done. Done with the victim mentality, done with blaming the past, done with unforgiveness, because when you have unforgiveness in your past, whether it's with a person or a circumstance or a situation or an environment, when you're done with, like in your mindset, you create this victim mentality, you create this I will never, it will always be, but you've got to stop it. That's where it says the buck stops here. I'm going to forgive. I'm going to choose to be done with the past. I'm not going to live in the past. I'm not going to blame, shame, or justify anything in my past from where I am today. It stops, and I'm going to have complete awareness and ownership of where I'm going. I 100% believe that part of the reason people are where they are today and in their future of where they're going is because they're constantly living in this I will never, I didn't get this in the past. Like it's this past mentality of how they were treated, when in reality it might have been terrible. There are people that, rightfully so, things that happened in your life or somebody else's life should have never happened. And as an adult, there is an aspect of like seeking counsel, getting help, being able to not forget, but forgive. And then if you're wanting better in your life, to be able to move forward, right? Oftentimes our past sits right here, which creates our thinking and then our actions and our results. So he talks a lot about that. He says, let me see. Okay, so he says, to accept responsibility for our choices includes becoming aware of and accepting responsibility for our thinking. So here's a little chunk I want to read to you. Decisions are an outward expression of our thinking. So what you're thinking, you just watch somebody and you can understand. All you have to do is listen and watch somebody. I can do it all the time, and I can, not judging, but also I can be like, I can tell where they're at mentally or even spiritually. I can be like, oh man, watch somebody's fruit, watch their outward decisions, watch how they're living their life in non-judgmental way, but just the decisions they're making. And you can tell most likely where they're at up here. He says, most people agree that their decisions have guided them to where they are today. If you want to create a pathway to success, you have to dream of it rather than the reality you are currently experiencing. So you've got to change your thinking. You are where you are because of how you think. If you are in a bad place, financially, physically, emotionally, socially, spiritually, what does that tell you? Think about it. Nobody sets out to fail. Nobody says, I'm going to get up and have a very bad day and make bad decisions every single day. I'm going to guess you didn't do that this morning, right? Instead, he says, I'm going to figure this out. So instead of saying, I'm going to have a bad day, you're going to say things like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make the right decision. And he says, and yet often we end up in a horrible place in spite of ourselves. How does this happen? He said, in many cases, our thinking gets a hold of us. He says, the primary way our thinking must change is to realize that we are responsible for where we are right now and where we are going. If we are responsible for where we are, we have hope. We are responsible for where we are, and then we can be responsible for where we are going. By disowning responsibility for our present, we are giving power away and denying ourselves our incredible future. Does this make sense? Are you following along? This is the book. He's an incredible author. Every book that I have read, I've got probably 10 of them. He's incredible. Andy Andrews. He says this, what thoughts do you have on a regular basis that may be leading you to be unhappy in your mind? Listen to this. He says, very often these are thoughts that form a question of defeat. For example, why am I so fat? Why am I so fat? Why do I look like this? Why am I not healthier? He says, it's not the question that will help you understand what steps to take towards the change in your situation. However, how can I enjoy, so if you change, it's the question, right? So let's change it. How can I enjoy sculpting my ideal body and reclaiming my energy? He says, will move you in a direction that you want to go. Not why am I so fat, which creates a negative, like why, and then you go down this rabbit hole of the past, but how can I enjoy sculpting my body and reclaiming my energy? He says, what questions do you habitually have to ask yourself in order to grow? Or a lot of this is awareness of what's going on up here. If you have never thought about, like, what am I thinking? Why am I doing that? Why did I just ask myself that question? Why did I believe that? Oftentimes, we've got a great group of friends that we hang out with, incredible friends. And if any of us say anything that is negative or just, we'll often say, we said something the other day. One of my girlfriends said something. She said something like, this is always going to be this way. I hate it. And we looked at her and we said, is that what you're believing for? Like, if you're saying, well, I'll always be this way. It's always going to be this way. Oh, I hate my life. I don't hate my life. Like, if you say things that are negative, I want you to picture me saying this to you. Is that what you're believing for? Is that what you're really wanting? Because if you just sit and pay attention to what you're thinking about and the words that are coming out of your mouth, you can really, truly almost dictate where somebody's going to go. Or have an idea of like, all right, you and I are going to be chatting up until next year and the next year. If you cannot get this and this under control. Your words are powerful. Your thoughts are powerful. They're going to ultimately guide you in a direction of negative or positive. You've got to have an awareness of that. This book is great. So he says the buck stops here. We're all done. We're done blaming. We're done shaming. We're done justifying our past. We're going to move on into our future. It says, my mind will not dwell in the problems of the past. It will live in the solutions of the future. So we're going to stop there because I didn't realize how long this chapter was. I was like, oh, it's long. So that, if you just need one thing to ponder on today, the buck stops here. What are you blaming, shaming, justifying from your past, even if it's just physically how you look? Where do you need to have an awareness? Where do you need to take responsibility? Who do you need to forgive? Right? Sometimes people say, well, I can never forget what happened to me. You probably won't forget, but there's an aspect of letting your heart just forgive and letting it go and going, I'm an adult. I'm going to own this and I'm going to move forward. And again, you might need counsel or finding mentors or seeking if it's something that needs to truly work on forgiveness. But oftentimes it might be, my girlfriend from high school told me I always was going to be fat, so I've ran with that for the last 20 years. Come on. There are things that are probably pretty minuscule. Somebody said something hurtful. I get it. Or you're comparing yourself to your coworker. I get it. There's things that you're like, I don't need to hold on to that anymore. That's pretty childish and I should move on. So, all right, this is the book. That is the question. I hope it helped somebody out there. Otherwise, continue to tune in. Those are my dogs. I have 4 of them. They're so great. I have to speak that I love them because if I don't, I love them. Otherwise, continue to tune in. You can go to ketomomsecrets.com, all one word. We've got a blog, we've got recipes, we've got a book club, ketones. Hi, Amanda. Good morning, good afternoon, good morning. It's like mid-morning. If you want to know more about my mom fuel, just post mom fuel below. Otherwise, I appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. Your presence matters. Your words matter. Your thoughts matter. You've got this. It's an awareness and I'm done. I'm moving forward. I'm here to help. Send me a message. I hope you guys have a great morning and we'll talk to you soon.